हरि ओम। ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। ॐ महागणाधिपतये नमः। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Param Vedanta team extends a very warm welcome to you all for this fourth session of Introduction to Upanishads. We will study Mundaka Upanishad in today's class. So come on friends, let us get into the class to enjoy the study of one of the beautiful Upanishads. Before that, Dr. Ravi Shankar will give us a recap of topics we learned in our previous class. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Shankar, sir.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The last class covered the important and fundamental topics of Atma, creation and Maya, creation, the stage of manifold, Jiva Ishvara Aikyam, and the laws of karma. In the next slide, we see that at the micro or the Vyashti level, we are a mixture of Atma and Anatma. The Prakriya to understand the gross, subtle, and causal bodies, and the Panchakoshas helps to discriminate Atma and Anatma. By the Neti Neti or the not this methodology, what remains is Atma, the Chaitanya or the consciousness principle. We must remember the five properties of Atma, which was so well explained by Swami Paramarthanandaji. Knowing it is not enough. One has to claim it and abide in it at all times as one's birthright. This Atma is ever existent, Nitya, omnipresent, Sarvagata. We know that it is one alone without another, that is Ekaha or Advaita, and it has no attributes or nirguna. We see in the next slide at the macro or the Vyash, at the Samashchi level, the question that comes is it creation? Evolution and involution occurs, but nothing can be created. Hence, it must be manifestation. Like in a seed before germination, it exists in a dormant, unmanifest potential form. Through the power of Maya, which is anadi and anirvachaniyam or inexplicable, and with its avarna and vikshepa shakti, the causal, subtle, and gross forms manifest. Brahman has Maya, and Atma has avidya as the power for manifestation. The state of waking, dream, and deep sleep, or the avastatraya, helps us to understand this evolution. In the next slide, we see that both Vyashti and Samashti is matter. It is insentient, like a bulb with a filament. It needs a Chaitanya or a consciousness principle, so to say, electricity, to make it glow with light and become sentient. So also, consciousness principle needs a medium to show itself. Now let us understand the states of manifestation in the next slide. Brahman with Maya is Ishvara. The first manifestation is Akasha or space, followed by Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi in that order. These Panchabhutas go through a process of Panchikarana. Diagrammatically, as you can see, each splits into two halves. One half is retained and the other half splits into four. Mathematically, out of 100 of space, 50 is retained and the other half splits into four parts of 12.5 each unto air, fire, water, and earth. The sattva elements give rise to the five senses in number. In combination, the sattva qualities give rise to the mind, intellect, the ego, and the memory, and is called as the antahakarana. The individual rajas elements give rise to speech, hand, feet, the generation, and the excretory system, and in combination give rise to the pancha pranas. The tanmatras are at the cosmic creation level. The sattva and rajas additions come from the maya aspect at the individual creation. Through panchikarana, cosmic subtle becomes cosmic gross. In the next slide, we see that matter and consciousness, or anatma or atma, we often get lost in the name and form. Never forget the basic clay in all the pots and the gold in all the bracelets and the rings. Similarly, we must be aware of the same consciousness principle as the original consciousness and as the reflected consciousness in Jiva. When the chitta is clear, the understanding of the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara is also clear. Our teacher explained it in the last class as Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam. This knowledge or jnanam, when it becomes a conviction, is transformational. In the next slide, we see that human life is like that of an insect caught in the vortex of a whirlpool. This is due to karma. All actions have consequences. They give rise to visible and invisible punyas and papas. They fructify at different times. The accumulated or sanchita, the ones that are to be accrued as agami, and the ones that bearing fruits right now, or the prarabdha, give rise to the life of a person. Let us not be fatalistic, but we must accept and use free will. It was well explained last time, like a delivery man, we get back what we sow. Only with jnanam can all this be dissolved here and now to be a jivan mukta, or after death to have videha mukti. This is through self-effort and the grace of Guru and Shastra. Hari Om Sir.
Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar, for a nice recap. Today, we finally come to the world of the Upanishads. These are introductory classes to one of the most basic and one of the most wonderful Upanishads to study, the Mundaka Upanishad, which comes from the Atharva Veda. The word Munda means head, literally means a shaven head, which means all our hair indicates our attachments or our wrong notions. And when a person has that level of vairagya to be able to shave one's hair, is a process of getting over wrong notions and getting over attachments. This Upanishad is a relatively short or a compact Upanishad with about 65 verses. There are 3 chapters and 2 sections each. Totally, there are 6 sections in this Upanishad. This Upanishad begins in a most wonderful way, which indicates the glory of the Upanishads that we have to study, because it comes directly from the Lord, from Lord Brahmaji himself. The opening verse is like this: Om Brahma Devanam Prathama Sambhabhuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta, which means the Lord Brahmaji got this knowledge, he gave it to his eldest son. He gave this knowledge to his eldest son, Atharva. Atharva is the one from whom most of the verses of the Atharva Veda have come. This Upanishad is, after all, from the Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda gives it to Angi, from Angi to Satyavaha, Satyavaha to Angirasa. And Angirasa is the teacher of the present Upanishad. The student is Shaunaka. Shaunaka is a qualified student, and he begins again with a very impressive question. And that is what makes these Upanishads so interesting and so wonderful. The student comes to the teacher very reverentially and asks, "Oh Bhagavan, oh my Lord, can you please explain to me what is that knowing which everything becomes known?" Which means there is something knowing which everything becomes known. The teacher agrees to answer, and he says, in all types of knowledge, we can classify knowledge into 2 types. One is called the apara vidya, or the worldly knowledge, and the second is called the spiritual knowledge, or the para vidya, which is all about Brahman, the creator or God, the source of everything. Virtually, he's saying, if you know the origin, if you know the source of all, it is virtually like knowing all. If I know all about gold, I will know everything about all golden ornaments, because all the ornaments are just various forms of that original gold. And so this is what the Upanishad is wanting to know, the essential cause of everything. The greatness of this Upanishad is all this, what you're seeing in this slide. It begins with the Shanti Pata, which will be explained by Dr. Ahalya, which is Om Bhadram Karnebi Shrunyama, a wonderful daily prayer for all of us to make. There are some exceedingly great mantras. As I said, there are 65 mantras. We had great difficulty in choosing the mantras to give you a sample of this Upanishad. We have chosen about 6 of these mantras. There are many, many more wonderful mantras, and I will assure you in this year itself, if there is one Upanishad that we are going to study in detail, it will be the Mundaka Upanishad. There is one Upanishad, if you learn this Upanishad, which I call it as a 12th mantra. The numbering becomes different in each section. Each section begins with 1. This is that mantra Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan, which will be explained to us by Dr. Sundar. There is another very popular mantra chanted during the time of Arati, Natatra Suryo Bhati, a mantra worth knowing to chant and knowing to understand. Dr. Anupama will tell us about this. You would have heard of Satyameva Jayate, that comes in this Upanishad itself. And there are 2 wonderful examples of the 2 bird examples, the Jivatma and Paramatma, which Vishwanath will explain, and how Omkara as the bow and arrow example, which will be explained to us by Karthik. There is another mantra where the spider example is given, where Brahman is both the material cause and the intelligent cause of the universe. So as I said, we are excluding a lot of mantras, but we will sample a few mantras. We will begin with the Shanti Pata by Dr. Ahalya. Over to you, Dr. Ahalya.
Namaste. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As Dr. Hegde already mentioned, this Shanti Mantra comes from Atharva Veda, and it goes so. Om Bhadram Karneva Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabir Yajatraha Sthirairangair Stuštuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vriddhashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dhadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This Shanti Mantra appears in Mandukya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Kaivalya, and Ganapati Atharva Shirsha Upanishad, along with many others. As we are familiar by now, the Shanti Mantras are chanted before the commencement of study to facilitate a smooth learning. These are prayers to tap Ishwaranugraha. These are positive affirmations a guru introduces the Shishya into. These Shanti Mantras touch upon the effective domain of learning, which includes the emotional aspects of a student. The seers had placed high importance on this domain, and so the Shanti Mantras we chant invoke the blessings for the well-being of everyone and every being. This Shanti Mantra is a prayerful submission for a healthy body and mind. The next slide, sir. The verse Bhadrang Karnebhihi is a very popular and often recited verse in all auspicious occasions. It is addressed to various devatas who preside over our organs. One Lord controls the creation through various cosmic forces. They derive their strength and authority from Ishvara. The word Bhadram actually means auspiciousness, Shubham, Mangalam. As in Veerabhadra, Bhadrakali, that we commonly hear. Now, what is auspicious for a student of Vedanta? Whatever helps to abide in self is auspicious. Karnevihi. Karnevihi is Vedic Sanskrit, not the common usage. Let's hear well and let's hear the good in what is being said. This is the meaning here. We hear auspicious words only when there is an ambience of auspiciousness around us. Badram Pashye Makshibir. Let us see well and let us see only what is auspicious. Yajatraha, protector of worshippers. Hey Yajatra is how it comes through. Stirai Rangai Stuštuvagam. Stirai Rangai, let's be endowed with firm limbs and body to be able to worship you. You here means the universe. Styavanam kurvataha is what the text says. Sas tanubihi. Tanu is Vedic Suktam. Vyashema deva hitam yadayuhu. Let us enjoy the full life as ordained by the devas. Let us be fit enough till our last breath. May there be no apamrityu is also conveyed here. The next part of the shloka, which says, Swastina Indra, Naha is us. Indra blesses with physical and mental strength. Let my actions be auspicious. Vruddhashravaha, most famous, or Brihat Kirti. Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha. In fact, when we say Swastina Indra, it also says this is very important as we face the ups and downs of life, and will still be able to study the scriptures and be interested in the spiritual aspects. Vruddhashravaha, the most famous, or the Brihat Kirti. Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha. Let Surya shower his grace and give me pranic energy in addition to physical and mental energy. Pushna means Pushnadi, the one who nourishes and energizes the whole creation. Surya is also Vishwavedaha, Sarvagnya, or omniscient. Swastinas Tarksho. Tarksha is Garuda Deva, Arishtanemihi. Let the obstacles in my spiritual journey be removed. Swastino Brihaspatir Dadatu. The Lord of speech, Brihaspati, bless me with good words and right understanding, is how this says. After all, Vedanta is a series of dialogues. So it's important to hear good things and the right understanding of the other speech as well. And it customarily, as usual, ends with the three Shantis, which talk of Adhyatmika Shanti, those problems that originate from myself, like the aches and pains and the unnecessary worries that can disturb us during Shravanam. Adi Bhautika Shanti, those that come from the surroundings, like the loud noise, TV, insects, etc. Or the Adi Daivika Shanti, the forces of nature over which we have no control over, the pandemic, the earthquake, cyclones, etc. So this mantra asks for the grace to be able to study the Upanishad completely. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Ahalya. We will go to the Upanishad proper, and I will request Venkatesh Prasad to explain some of the opening verses and some of the key verses which tell us about the nature of Brahman, which is the answer to that question. What is that knowing which everything becomes known? Venkatesh, please.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have seen in the introduction that Brahma Vidya has flown from Brahmaji to Angirasa, who has now started teaching Shaunaka and has introduced the term Aksharam in verse 5. In the verse 6, Guru Angirasa defines Akshara, which is nothing but Brahman. Definition means Lakshanam in Sanskrit. Hence, this mantra is called Brahma Lakshana Mantra, and hence is a very important mantra of this Upanishad. So, what is Aksharam? The imperishable truth which will survive even when the whole creation is resolved, and again the creation will come out of that basic truth alone. Now, what is the nature of Akshara Brahma? It is formless. Whatever has form will get deformed. Therefore, no formed thing is eternal. It can never be the ultimate reality. Therefore, real Brahman is formless, arupam. Let's look at the verse proper. Yattadadreshyamagrahyamagotramavarnam achakshushrotram tadapanipadam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yadbhutayonim paripashyanti dhiraha. Let us see each Lakshanam as shown in the next slide. Yat adadreshyam, that which is not available for eyes, meaning not available for sense organs or panchagnanendriyas. Agrahyam, cannot be grasped by hands and not be available for any organ of action or panchakarmendriyas. Agotram, it doesn't have any family or clan. Gotram follows only after it is born. Gotram is based on parentage and parentage on birth. Aksharam, Brahman, has no birth and hence has no Gotram. Next is Avarnam. Varna means color or caste or property. Adi Shankara beautifully explains that Brahma has no color, no caste, no name, no form, property, place, time in his Viveka Chudamani, verse 254. It goes like this. Jati niti kulagotra duragam nama rupa gunadosha varjitam deshakala vishayati tavartiyat brahma tattvamasi bhavayatmani. Next is Achakshashotram, has no eyes or ears. Extending this, it has no organs of actions. In the first line, it is said Brahman is not visible to eyes. Here in the second line, it is said it has no eyes. So we may add and say Brahman is Niravayavam, Nityam. It is eternal, has no destruction. Ornament is temporary and subject to destruction, but not the gold. Pot has an end, but not the clay. Just like this, Karya has an end, but not the Karanam. It is eternal. Vibhum. It itself becomes the entire creation, like the wood manifesting as furniture and clay becoming a pot. Sarvagatam, all pervading. Any cause should be all pervading. All furniture have wood in them. We cannot imagine furniture without wood. Susukshma, it is extremely subtle. Pramana agocharam, difficult to apprehend because it cannot be experienced by any of our organs. Tad avyayam, it is without decay, not expendable, without disintegration, without declension, without old age. It is very important for us to always keep in mind that I am Brahman and therefore I have no death. I will not decay. I am Shashvata. I am Avyayam. Bhuta Yonihi. This is perhaps the most important word and Lakshana. Bhuta here means all beings and Yoni means cause or womb. This is from where the baby comes out. What of Brahman? The whole universe comes out of Brahman or Hiranyagarbha. He is Jagat Karanam. Bhuta Yoni means Jagat Karanam. Next slide, sir. Like an actor mantles different roles, Brahman manifests as various aspects of entire universe. Hence, knowing Brahman is knowing entire world. Brahmagnanena sarvagnanam sambhavati. Yeka vignanena sarva vignanam sambhavati. Dhiraha paripashyanti. This is the last part of the shloka. Dhiraha means those who have acquired fourfold qualification and Brahmagnana yogyata. Pari means everywhere. They see Brahman everywhere. Just like we see gold in all ornaments, we can also see Brahman everywhere. By knowing Brahman, everything is known. This responds to the question of Shaunaka that what is that by knowing which everything is known. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Venkatesh, for a very nice explanation. You will see the difficulty in the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the ultimate level of knowledge. And therefore, although for beginners it may look difficult, but I will only say be patient, because this is the question and this is the answer, which is sequentially answered again in the entire Upanishad itself. We will go to the next important verse, which will be explained to you by Dr. Sundar. Dr. Sundar, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. While the previous verse dealt with Brahmajnanam, this verse deals with the preparation to attain to that knowledge. Before we go to the word-to-word meaning of this sloka, let us revisit Karma Yoga, with which this verse is very closely associated with. We have seen that Karma Yoga is a triad of Sadkarma, Sadbhavana, and Sadguna. Sadkarma is karma which is beneficial to maximum number of people. And we have also seen that Sadbhavana, or the right attitude, comprises of Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. As we see in the next slide, Karma Yoga gives rise to threefold benefits: Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutvam. It is important to understand how Karma Yoga gives rise to these three, which will help us to understand the sloka. We have already seen in the previous slide that the two Sadbhavana are Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Ishvara Prasada Bhava. A person who has Ishvara Arpana Bhava essentially offers all the karmas he does through the day as a worship at Lord's feet. For this person, the attitude of Arpanam is more important than the act itself. This means to say that he doesn't differentiate one act from the other, doesn't color the act by ragadveshas, doesn't pick a particular act as nice and drop another as not so nice, because for him, Arpanam is primary and the act is not so much important. Therefore, Ishvara Arpana Bhava brings samatvam at the level of the attitude towards the act. The second of the Sadbhavana is Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. In this attitude, this person accepts all the experiences that comes to him through the day as Ishvara Prasada. For him, the inner growth, Chitta Shuddhi, or purity of mind is primary, and material success or material failure accruing to the result is secondary. Since he is looking at the primary outcome of inner growth and the material result is subservient to that, he has samatvam at the level of attitude towards the result of the act. So as we see, this attitude of Sadbhavana bestows samatvam for a person at both levels, towards the act and towards the result. This samatvam or equipoise affords this person an opportunity to sit back and objectively look at the accomplishments of his life and then decide that whatever he has accomplished is ephemeral, and this is Viveka. And then next he develops dispassion towards the Anitya with his Vairagyam. And thirdly, he now shifts his mind towards God as the Nitya Vastu, which is Mumukshutvam. Therefore, Samatvam is primary to move on from Karma Upasana to Jnana Yoga. Let us see this transition happening as explained in this verse in the next slide. So, Brahmana here refers to a Karma Yogi. Karma Chitan refers to this person taking to Karma Upasana Yoga. And through God's blessing, the word Loka represents Dharmartha Kama Purushartha that one gets. Since he has been a Karma Yogi, since he has got Samatvam as we saw earlier, Pariksha refers to this person examining objectively his life, and then he sees the three doshas in these three Purusharthas, which is Dukkha Mishritatvam, Atriptikaratvam, and Bandhakatvam. This is Viveka. Then he develops Nirvejyam, which is Vairagyam towards these three Purusharthas, which represents prayas. Na asti akrita kritena. Kritena refers to karma, and this shloka is telling through karma na asti akrita, one cannot get infinite or moksha purushartha. Then he matures spiritually, he looks around. After Vairagyam, he then goes to Mumukshutvam, which is referred by the word tad here, the infinite. He comes to know that the infinite is there where the seeker is, at the same place, at the same time. Then he realizes if it is there with me right now, it's not a matter of doing, but it's a matter of knowing. So that is represented by the word Vijñārtham. However, this is not an easy process. He knows he needs to go to a guru for that. Saha again refers to Brahmana. Gurumeva abhigachet. So he goes or approaches the guru. Eva represents clearly that this is the only way. There is no scope for self-study. And how does one approach the guru? Samit Pani refers to the offerings this person carries with him with an attitude of reverence, devotion, bhakti, and humility. The last two words, Shrotriya Brahmanishta, describe the qualities of such a guru. Brahmanishta means that this guru is abiding in Brahman. He is verily Brahman himself. For him, there is no difference between what he knows and what he is. Shrotriya refers to the ability of the guru to communicate in the manner of a sampradaya, using various prakriyas or methodology which are there in the scriptures. To conclude, this verse tells us how to move on from karma upasana yoga through samatvam to jnana yoga. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar, for a brilliant explanation of a very, very important mantra, which is a transitional mantra, a mantra in which it is worth studying this mantra, worth remembering this mantra, because it can help us to transform the way we evolve spiritually. If I have examined my life and I know that this is ultimately whatever I can accomplish, and the infinite cannot be accomplished through my finite efforts, that is when a person turns to Brahma Vidya. That is where the importance of a guru and the Upanishad comes. And that is the glory of this particular mantra. Dr. Anupama will explain that famous mantra, Na Tatra Surya. Over to you.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhanti, kuto ayam agnihi. Tam eva bhantam anubhati sarvam, tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. The essence of this mantra is Atma is ever the experiencer subject and never the experienced object. In and through all experiences, Atma is self-evident. Prati bodha viditam matam. The uniqueness of Vedanta is, in every experience, we are trained to shift our attention from the object of experience to the experiencer, the subject. This object of experience, however great or divine, is just nitya. Ultimately, it is I, the witness consciousness Atma, who lends existence not just to the universe, but even to Saguna Ishvara. Mai evam sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam. What is Swayam Prakashatvam? Atma is self-evident. Atma is compared to light as it illuminates Anatma. Illumination in Vedanta refers to that in whose presence an unknown object is made known. An illuminator is therefore called light. Jyotishyam Jyoti, light of all lights. In every sense organ is referred to as light. For example, the nose makes the sense of smell evident to us. Therefore, the nose is called the illuminator or light of smell. The mind illumines all the sense organs. Therefore, it is called the illuminator or light of sense organs. Consciousness makes the mind sentient. Therefore, it is called the ultimate illuminator or light of all lights. Jyotishyam Jyoti is explained in this verse through three key words: Bhati, Anubhati, and Vibhati. Bhanam, Anubhanam, and Vibhanam. Bha refers to Prakasha or light. What is Bhanam? In every cognition, Janami, that happens to us in the waking state, two entities coexist. Jana, the revelation of the object, and me, I, the subject. The process of cognition, therefore, involves the cognizer, who's self-evident, the bhanam, and the cognized object, known through the process of cognition called anubhanam. What then is the difference between bhanam and anubhanam? Bhanam refers to I, the Atma, the unchanging Sakshi Chaitanya. Anubhanam refers to the Anatma, which is always changing. Since they often coexist, we erroneously anchor on and identify with this Anatma and get entangled in samsara. How many illuminators are there? There is only one, the Atma. Tam eva bhantam sarvam anubhati. For example, Surya bhati, as it is self-illuminating, and Chandra anubhati, because it borrows luminosity from the sun. What is the difference between bhati and vibhati? When Atma shines by itself, it is called bhanam. The chit is manifest as bimba chaitanyam. When Atma manifests through the mind as pratibimba chaitanyam or chidabhasa, it is called vibhanam. Let's take some examples again. During daytime, the sun bhati. On a Purnima night, the sun vibhati, but via the medium of the moon. Also, during Shushupti or deep sleep, Atma bhati. But in the waking state, Atma illumines the world for us through the mind, and this is called vibhati. Bhati therefore refers to one Atma and vibhati to many minds. Vivida antakarana indriya dvara, vivida pramana dvara, Atma eva vibhati. The Brahman alone illumines directly or indirectly through various media. Tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. To conclude, Brahman cannot and need not be illumined. Suryana bhati, the sun cannot illumine Brahman, na Chandra, neither the moon, na Tarakam, nor to the stars, na Vidyut, neither the flashes of lightning. Kuta ayam agnihi, definitely not the fire which we use as a diya to illumine the Lord. None of these can illumine Brahman. Actually, there is no need because Brahman is self-evident. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for explaining a profound verse, which we commonly do at the time of Arati. When we use the Arati, and Arati is the time when everybody becomes alert, all the attention is on the deity. So the light of the flame of the Arati is illumining the Murti of the Lord, and all of us are paying attention on that Murti. So there is a light of the Arati falling on the image of God. That light falls on our eyes. From our eyes, it goes to our mind. And from our mind, it comes to our consciousness. In Vedanta, the whole exercise is to move from the object to the subject. I am seeing Bhagavan in the form of the Murti, but I need to see that even though I'm seeing Bhagavan out there, I need to become aware of that Atma Tattva in me, because of which I'm able to see everything. And then you will see, although you may be in the most sacred of Tirupati and you have the opportunity to be there when they are doing Arati, in the most intense of moments, what do? We close our eyes, because now I want to become aware of that consciousness which is illumining the darkness, but I'm able to perceive that consciousness that I am in the presence of the Lord. Now, this is a very, very profound mantra, but it is a very practical mantra also. So this is the glory of the Upanishads. If you can get a taste of it, then you will work for more. Karthik will explain another very profound mantra. Over to you, Karthik.
We are in the middle part of the Upanishad and are studying about Paravidya. So we just now saw how difficult it is to understand Brahman. So we are looking at various ways and various sadhanas on how to understand and recognize Brahman, so to speak. So we are looking at how the Sat Chit Brahman needs to be the only goal of every sadhaka or individual, and trying to understand that. So now, just before we start, there's one word which will come repeatedly in Upanishads, and which we, in the course of our study, will be using it as a concept. It is called neti neti. Now, why not just one neti? Why two netis? It is a repetition for a reason. It means not the subject, not the object, not an effect, not the cause, not the witnessed, not the witness. All relative words go as pairs. When one is negated, the other term stands negated automatically, as there is a dependency among words. Yeah, this is just an aside note. Now, previously we saw how Brahman is shining, subtler than the subtlest, and all the worlds and all their indwellers have their being in it. That is, Brahman is prana, Brahman is speech, Brahman is the mind, and Brahman alone is the truth, and Brahman is immortal. Now we see another method in Vedanta and in scriptures, it is called an upaya, and we make it easier to understand. Like for instance, if we cannot lift a heavy stone, we use a cantilever. So if you cannot do it one way, there is another way of helping you do it. There is an upaya for knowing Brahman. We have the symbol called, sound called Om, that encompasses all states of experience. We saw earlier, we saw in the previous class as well. There are different states of experiences, and this Om encompasses all these states. And we load on this Om all the words and the words that are experienced and not experienced, and understand Brahman through Om. Okay, this is one way. And Om is very, very powerful because we are loading everything on it. How powerful is it? Okay, suppose we want to use a program in a computer. We click on an icon and the whole program opens up. A particular function in the program is then invoked by clicking a submenu and so on and so forth. Chanting Om is like opening up a program that invokes Ishvara, the ruler of everything and of every function. Hence, Om is included in all the mantras we saw, right from Shanti mantra to the end, last part of the Upanishad as well, regardless of whether it is a part of the mantra or not. Even while doing a puja, normal puja, Om Namah Shivaya, like that. So Om is a part of everything. Now, the qualifications and the sadhana required for absorbing this learning of Brahma Vidya are also set out in this Upanishad. Now, as just they say, I mean, the qualification is as just like the yoga teachers say, I mean, you keep your spine straight and your spine will ensure that the brain remains alert. So we just focus on the qualifications and automatically Brahma Vidya comes on to us. Now, in two famous mantras, as you can see, the Upanishad compares the entire spiritual pursuit to the process of the archery using the powerful Om. Now, the two mantras are Dhanu Grihatva Upanishadam Mahastram, Sharam Shupasa Nishitam Sandhayit, Ayamya Tadbhavagatena Chetasa, Lakshyam Tadevaksharam Saumya Vidhi. The next one, Pranavo Dhanuhu Sharohi Atma, Brahmatal Laksham Uchate, Apramattena Vedhavyam, Sharavat Tanmayaha Bhavit. I'll just read out the meaning. O pleasing one, may you take the great bow of Om that is revealed in the Upanishads and fix the arrow of mind that is sharpened by meditation. Then may you strike the target of Brahman with a mind that is committed to the meaning of Om by pulling the string of the bow. Next, Omkara is the bow, Atman indeed is the arrow, and Brahman is said to be its target. It must be known without indifference. I'll explain that. One should become one with that Brahman like the arrow with the target. Then we have this image. Just record that in your mind. This image is very, very important. Okay. Then next. Now let's come to the shloka. Pranava. Pranavaha Dhanuhu. Pranavaha means it is Om, as explained earlier. Om is very, very powerful. Pranava is Om. Now, for lack of thing, I will just say Navaha means name. It represents something, and Pra means perfect in this context. So Pranavaha means perfect name. Perfect name for who? For Bhagavan. It is also Om, the Upanishadic teaching. Now, next is the arrow is the Jivatma, the individual, the student, you and I, the sadhaka, the one who is straightened by karma yoga, and sharpened through upasana yoga for a sufficiently long time. Swamiji here uses the word arjavam. Arjavam is very important. We read it in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjavam essentially means your speech, your thought, and your words are aligned. So that means to say, you say what you speak and you speak what you say, and you are essentially very, very well integrated. So that is the preparation. That is the status of the Jivatma that is shown here as the arrow. That should also be the conditions for a sadhaka. Krishna also says it is Aneka Janma Samsiddha. In another part of Bhagavad Gita, it comes through Aneka Janma. It is not right. He just says it. Aneka Janma means so much of effort is involved in knowing this. Then the next slide. Brahmatal Lakshanam Uchate. Brahma is Brahman. Talakshyam is its target. That is the implied meaning. It is not exactly a target, it's the implied meaning. Uchyate is said. As explained earlier, the target is Karanishvara, Satchit Brahma, or even the knowledge of Brahma, as explained in the one or two shlokas earlier, mantras earlier, sorry. And again, a side note, in Upanishad, it is always called a mantra. In a Smriti, in Shruti, it is always called a mantra. In Smritis and everything, it's called a shloka. Next one. Now we talk about the distance between a bow and a target. It is not spatial. No need to travel to Paramatma. It is not time-wise. No need to become a Paramatma. And ignorance, like we saw in the previous mantra, Natatra Suryo Bhati, basically we are telling, when we are using the Mangalarti, we are using that flame to take away the ignorance. So ignorance is the notional distance which, when removed through right knowledge and understanding, Jivatma can claim to be Paramatma and merger is realized. That is, Brahman is realized. Then the next slide is Apramattena Vedhavyam. Apramattena is without indifference, that is focused only on the target without any distractions whatsoever. And Vedhavyam has to be understood. Chant Om with the understanding that Om is implied Brahman, as said in the beginning. Next, Sharavat Tanmayaha Bhavet. May one become one with the target like an arrow. Just as an arrow that strikes a target becomes one with the target and no longer remains separate. Similarly, may one become Brahmanishta. May one recognize oneself as Brahman. May one not have any doubt whatsoever with respect to this fact. You claim Brahman. By giving up the notion of I in the physical body, may one have clear knowledge of oneness with Brahman, which is the implied meaning of Om. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik, for a nice explanation of this particular verse, which talks of how, as students of the Upanishads, we have to be straightforward and sharp like an arrow. We need to use the Upanishads, which is the Omkara. The archer is our guru, and our guru tells us that there is no real distance between you and the goal, and the teacher tells you, you are already that which you can possibly be. There is another beautiful example which Vishwanath will tell you about what is my higher self and my lower self with this two-bird example. Over to you, Vishwanath. Dr. Vishwanath, please.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is one of the prominent mantras in Upanishads and gives you the complete clarity about the Jivatma and the Paramatma. We will first look at the verse. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya Samanam Vriksham Parisasvajate Tayoranyaha Pippalam Swadvati Anasnananyo Avicha Kashiti. Let us look at the meaning in the upcoming slide. Two birds living together in close friendship, perched upon the same tree, meaning seated on the same tree. Of the two, one eats the fruit of the tree, but the other just looks on without eating. Dva Swaparna Sayuja Sakaya means two birds closely united in friendship. Samanam Vraksham Parisasvajate, on the same tree they are perched or resting. Tayoranyaha Pipalam Swadvati, among the two, one of them eats the fruits of the tree with great relish. Anasnananyo Abicha Kashiti, the other, without eating anything, just simply looks on. Next slide, please. So let us look at the three prominent terminologies here. In the verse, the physical body or the Sthula Sharira is compared to a tree. Just as the tree fades and dies one day, our body, Sthula Sharira, also collapses and perishes one day. Next is Jivatma, which is enclosed within the physical body. This is compared to one bird. This is Jivatma bird is the combination of our Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, and the reflected consciousness. Another explanation for Jivatma is, it is the Karta, the doer, Bhokta, the consumer, Jnata, the knower, and Ahamkara, the ego or our identity. The Jivatma, which is enclosed in the physical body, enjoys the life and suffers the sorrows. All success and failures belong to Jivatma. Therefore, subject to Papam and Punyam. Also, subject to Punarapi Jananam and Punarapi Maranam. In short, Jivatma is Karta as well as Bhokta and is subject to Samsara. The last one is the Paramatma, or the original consciousness, is another bird. It is eternal and all-pervading, like one of the speakers, Venkatesh sir, explained about the Paramatma. It has neither death or birth. Najayate mriyate va kadachit, we saw in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 20. The Paramatma bird in this verse is Sakshi, without experiencing either the bitter or sweet fruit. It is simply the witness, it is simply witnessing the Jivatma, and this is called the Jivatma bird. Paramatma or Paramatma bird in this example is Karanam and only lends existence to Jivatma. It is neither the Karta nor Bhokta. It does not have Sanchita, Agami or Prarabdha karmas. Paramatma is Nitya Mukta Swarupa. It is Sakshi Chaitanya. The combined depiction is shown in the next slide. Just to give you another example, the sun in the sky never trembles, but its reflection on the water or on the lake trembles. Similarly, we identify ourselves to be the body-mind complex or Sthula Sharira and Jivatma. We get agitated due to the changes in external factors and continuous flow of thoughts in the mind, reflecting the past and the future. In this example, sun is our original consciousness, and the trembling reflections on the water is our body-mind complex. The Jivatma or ego bird, in its delusion, goes on pecking the fruits of the tree. Some fruits are ripe and sweet, some are sour. It experiences the joy of the ripe fruits and the sorrow of the bitter fruit. This is called the cycle of samsara, which we all go through. The Paramatma bird is just unperturbed and just witnesses the joy and sorrow of the Jivatma bird that is experiencing. Here, sweet and bitter fruits are the fruits of karma, which is the result of our past actions. Identifying ourselves with the finite things in this world, we are becoming a sorrow bird. Identifying ourselves with our eternal true nature, we are becoming the witness bird that lives with peace and dignity. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwanath, for giving us an explanation of a very popular Upanishadic verse, which talks us about two aspects in me. One is the body-mind complex, which we normally identify. And when we go through spiritual experiences, when we are quiet, we discover there is another person within us who is observing all these. And the whole of the Upanishadic journey is to move from the lower bird to the higher bird, and which is the process of all our Upanishadic studies. With that, we have come to the end of Mundaka, a glimpse of Mundaka. We will go into what we are in for next week. Before we go into the chapter of next week, for all students of Vedanta, Mahashivaratri is a very important event, And in all our classes, all our years, for a few weeks before Shivaratri, we begin with a variety of classes which prepare us for the great event. For students of Vedanta, the important events in a year are Shivaratri, Guru Purnima, and Gita Jayanti. As Mahashivaratri comes in the 11th of March, let us learn one wonderful mantra. It is said that this mantra is so beloved to Lord Shiva that if you were able to chant this mantra in front of Shivalinga, Swami Chidananda ji says, Shiva is so pleased that he manifests himself to you and says, can you please tell me what do you want? I will request Venkatesh Prasad to chant this mantra for us. All of us should learn how to chant this mantra, and I will quickly give you a running meaning of these words. Venkatesh, please.
Om Namaste Astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Trayambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagnikalaya Kalagnirudraya Neelakantaya Mrutyunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Sriman Mahadevaya Namaha.
Thank you, Venkatesh. Let us go through the running meaning of each word. Vishveshwaraya. I make my offering to Vishveshwaraya, the Lord of the entire universe. There is so much of order in the universe. Even though we see a lot of disorder, we know there is someone who's running this world, who's maintaining the universal laws on the world outside, and also the various karmic laws that if I do anything wrong, I will have to pay a price for it. In the form of papa. If I do something good, I have punya. If you understand this, we come to terms to accept that this is a just world and there is a Lord who is running this universe. And that is the meaning of the word Vishveshwaraya. The word Mahadevaya was already explained by Dr. Anupama as Na Tatra Suryo Bhati, the light of all lights. By light means here is that which illumines and make things known. The light of all lights is the Atma Tattva or the consciousness. And Shiva is also referred to as Deva Deva, the Lord of all gods, or Mahadeva, the illuminator of all illuminators. Shiva is also referred to as Trayambaka. Shiva has 3 eyes. 2 eyes refer to the Apara Vidya, the worldly knowledge. The 3rd eye of Shiva represents spiritual knowledge, that knowledge which helps us to understand the upper bird, the Atma Tattva within me. So Trayambakam means when a person is evolved, when a person applies something on the forehead, you are activating the 3rd eye, the Jnana Chakshu of Shiva. Tripurantaka is another name for Lord Shiva because we live in not one world but in 3 worlds. In the world of Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti, the waking dream and the deep sleep state. But when we become aware, we realize that we are the Turiya which is in and through all these states. In the Puranas, there is the Rakshasa story and the Shiva through the 3rd eye destroys all the 3 cities, or through Brahma Vidya, we know that we are not the waker, dreamer, or the deep sleep, but the Turiya. Trikagni Kalaya is in the Veda Purva. There are various forms of Agni that we are supposed to maintain. And as we move from Veda Purva to Veda Anta, Shiva brings an end to all the karmic practices once a person evolves so that we can pursue self-knowledge. Kalagni Rudraya. Ultimately, all the material world comes to an end and Shiva is the destroyer. That fire which destroys the entire universe is Kalagni Rudraya. Neelakantaya. We have the Samudra Mathana example. When good things came, there were a lot of devatas to take away all the good things that came from the Milky Ocean. When Hala Hala, when the terrible poison came, the only person who could consume was Lord Shiva. Whenever we reflect on our lives, some unpleasant events in our lives, sometimes a lot of negative emotions come and we feel the need to share it with somebody. Sometimes we unburden ourselves to someone. That someone who can take all the negativeness and not be affected is Nilakanta or the Lord Shiva. Markandeya story represents Mrityunjaya, that Shiva, to your devotees, he will protect you from death, not from physical death, but an understanding that if I see myself not as the body-mind complex, but as the Atma, I understand the deathlessness in me. Sarveshwaraya, we began with Vishveshwaraya and we conclude with Sarveshwaraya, who's not only the Lord of the manifest world, but the Lord of the unmanifest world, which is Maya. We conclude with the word Sadashiva. Sadashiva means Shiva as Brahma Vidya Acharya. Dakshinamurti is always auspicious. Next week, we have a wonderful Upanishad, which, like the Mundaka Upanishad, is a very complete Upanishad in itself, with a very nice Shanti Pata, Om Sahana Bhavatu, which will be explained. This comes from the Krishna Yajurveda. This has about around 165 mantras in 6 vallis. There is a very nice story of Nachiketa going to Yamadharmaraja, who gets 3 boons. And in these 3 boons, the 3 debts that we have are explained. Pitrarina, Lokarina, and Acharya Rina, which we will come to the next class. Nachiketa goes through a tremendous phase of examination. Before Brahma Vidya is given to you, the teacher will assess you. Are you worthy of Brahma Vidya by giving you a lot of material attractions? And if you're able to have that sense of Vairagya, that's why I told you in the last class of the story about the various Siddhis. Even if everything is given to you, and if you have the ability to say no, then you have the eligibility to come to Brahma Vidya classes. You have the Ratha Kalpana, the chariot example. Many of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita come from the Kathopanishad, including that famous verse with Swami Vivekananda says, awake, arise, all come from this Upanishad, which we will see next week. To conclude this class, Venkatesh Prasad, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, friends, for a patient listening. Next Friday, we will be taking up another Upanishad for our study, as told by Dr. Hegde sir. It will be Katha Upanishad. As usual, on Monday, our Viveka Chudamani class will continue. That marks the end of today's session. Let's meet on Monday, same time for Viveka Chudamani. Please log in by 6:45 p.m. local time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.